Riverside Nashville's Impact the City Ministry presents Safe Space, a platform for leaders to keep it real and bring us into their personal stories of overcoming. This is an opportunity to remind ourselves that our trials are just as important as our triumphs because they both lead to our testimony. And now your host, Minister DaMarrus Miller.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Safe Space. I am your host, Pastor DaMarrus Miller, the young adult pastor here at the Riverside Chapel in Nashville, Tennessee. Listen, guys, I'm so excited about tonight's episode. I believe that it's going to bless. I believe it's going to bring hope and encourage any and everyone who listens to this. Today, we have a special guest on our episode where we're going to talk about the life, the ups, the downs, the positives, the negatives of being a single pastor. Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father, we pause in this moment to say thank you. God, we thank you for being a loving, kind, awesome Father to us. God, today as we share our testimonies, we ask that you be in the midst of everything we do and say, so that you will get all the honor and the glory. In your name we pray. Amen, amen, and amen. Listen, Safe Space family, I have the privilege of having an awesome panelist guest with us today. Let me introduce you to them now. Starting with our very own Pastor Michelle. Welcome to the Safe Space. How you doing, sis?
I'm doing great.
Good. Tell us where you're pastoring at and what's going on in your life.
Okay, well, my name is Pastor Michelle. That's what I go by, Michelle Moda. I pastor at Fondren SDA Church in Missouri City, Texas, which is just outside of Houston. I've been pastoring for 6 years, and I'm also the face of Chronicles of a Blank Girl. It's on YouTube. It's a show kind of that talks about the things that we go through as women every day. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Glad to have you. Pastor John, talk to me.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Pastor John Rematera. And when I get this question a lot, Pastor John, where are you from? It's a very layered question. I was born in Guam. I was raised in Orlando, Florida, but I currently pastor in Middle Kentucky, the Lake Cumberland district, which is composed of the Danville, Somerset, and Grove churches. I'm pretty sure not many of you have heard of those places, but they exist. And I have been pastoring here in this district for about 2 years now. And previously I pastored in Nashville. So I'm here now and I'm loving it. So that's where I'm at.
Pastor John, so glad to have you. We're going to jump down to Pastor Grosvenor. Talk to us.
Hey, everybody. My name is LaRon Grosvenor. I'm the lead pastor of the Alpha Church in Austin, Texas. Originally from Manchester, England, that is, but I've been living in the United States for just over 12 years. So excited to be here on this panel with these wonderful people. Thank you, Pastor Miller, for the invitation. And I'm excited for this powerful conversation.
Thank you, Pastor. So glad to have you on. So glad to welcome you to America. I know you've been here 12 years, but I still just want to welcome you as if you just came. Last but not least, for our pastors, we have Pastor Kim. Talk to me.
That was funny because I too am from not from America. I'm originally from Toronto, Canada, so I guess I am going to get a welcome also. I am serving as the senior pastor of the New Beginnings Seventh-day Adventist Church in Wichita, Kansas. Been here just recently in March, and it's been an awesome time of ministry. And I'm also the founder of the Love God, Love Sex movement. It's a space where women are empowered and inspired and challenged to love their bodies, to love sex, and to love God without compromising their values or their faith. So it's an awesome space to be able to inspire other women. And I'm happy to be here to talk about the single life as a pastor. Looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Pastor Kim, as you know, welcome to America. So glad to have you. So glad to have you on the Safe Space. And last but not least, we have a very special guest, one of my good friends, Dr. Samantha. Welcome to the Safe Space. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Dr. Samantha O'Bannon, or Dr. Sam. I hail from the beautiful island of Bermuda, represented right here. Yes. And basically, I have a doctorate in clinical psychology. I'm currently in California as working as a postdoc in neuropsychology. So I specialize in like brain and behavior relationships, and I am stoked about this conversation. So let's see.
Welcome to America. Listen, man, this is we got a little some spice and some good stuff going on here, man. Welcome to the safe space. Once again, everyone knows that we start. Look at John looking at me like I'm crazy. Everyone knows that we start the safe space off with an icebreaker. Now, because we are all pastors, and of course, Dr. Sam, you are a singer and been in the church your whole life. We're going to ask you some of these pastoral questions that I'm pretty sure that you can answer. And so everyone knows on Safe Space, we have our icebreaker, and we always use the same icebreaker. One has to go. And so we're going to start off with the first question. We're going to start with you, Michelle. One has to go. And so the question is, one special music has to go. One special music has to go. Choir, soloist, praise team, or the singing group, the quartet, or the small group.
The soloist has to go. Listen, sometimes some of these soloists, listen, when they come up right before we got to preach, and you didn't practice. We know you didn't practice. We know you ain't practiced that song. The soloist got to go.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. You know, and no soloists, of course, at your church. This is just the ones that you've heard about, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. All right.
We don't really do
Pastor
soloists at my church anymore. So
okay.
Go ahead.
Hey, this is a safe space. Pastor John, talk to me. One musical group has to go. The choir, the soloist, the praise team, or the quartet.
All right, I would probably have to kick the soloist as well. And the reason being is worship is a corporate affair. And sometimes we like to focus on individuals. And yes, are soloists a blessing? Yes. But I would prefer more people participating. So more people that sing, the better for me. So I'd kick the soloist.
Okay. All right. Great answer. We're going to jump down to Pastor Grosvenor. Talk to me.
I would say, based upon my experience of formerly pastoring in Alabama, in Selma, Alabama, I have to say goodbye quartet. I mean, you know, I was immersed in quartet music in Selma, Alabama. And when I left Selma, Alabama, I said goodbye to the church and I said goodbye to the quartets.
Got you. Okay.
Oh my God.
That is funny to me. Oh man. All right, Pastor Kim, talk to me. One has to go. Talk to me.
I love quartet music, so it'd have to be the soloist. And I'm coming at it from an analytical standpoint. You can always get a solo in any of those groups. So you can get rid of the soloist, but if you need a soloist, you can get a soloist in the praise team, the quartet, or the choir. So the end.
Okay. All right. I like that. Unless they're like me, who I can only sing in the choir, but I'm not the soloist.
Then yes, you would be exempt from solo opportunities. Correct.
I'm out. Extracted from it. All right, Dr. Sam, you as a singer, you've been singing your whole life. One has to go.
You really got to stop introducing me on these false pretenses. I would kick the quartet. So for me, yeah, we're in there together. It's a British connection. Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. I think you can get the same type of arrangement out of a praise team. I think the soloist is necessary to be a part of those other groups, just in case you need somebody to put a little spice on something, you know? It's not my ministry to sing a solo, so I need somebody that's designated for that. But the quartets, they can go, because we can have like a little arrangement in anything.
Okay. All right. I like that. I appreciate the honesty. You know, I want to be shocked if one of the members at your church say that they've seen this and they want to talk to you, pull you to the side to talk about your answers. But hey, that's just a part of safe space. The next question, one has to go. One of the gospels has to go. Yes, I said it. One of the gospels have to go. Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. One has to go. We're going to start with Dr. Sam right quick on this answer.
Okay, so this has no theological pretense or anything. This is not from studying. Personally, I genuinely like Luke. I really vibe with Luke. I think his language is hilarious. I love how he describes certain stories. I don't know if maybe he's a physician. And so I'm like, okay, doctor. But I think Mark is incredibly boring. And I'm so sorry, but I can't. So honestly, I would stick with Luke and like dead all of the other gospels, but I know that's gonna shock everybody else. So
Yeah.
I'll just stick to the question. Mark
Especially
has
when
to go.
Okay. Yeah. Especially when you use dead all the rest of them, it kind of, but I'm with you. Great answer. Thank you. Pastor Kim, talk to me. One of the gospels has to go.
This is a horrible question. I just want to put that in the atmosphere. But I probably would have to just go with probably just Matthew, just call it a day. Simply because it's maybe my least favorite, and that's using that word sparingly out of all of them. John is amazing. Mark is amazing. Luke might be up there with something to get rid of, but for sure, I guess I would lean towards Matthew.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I respect that. Pastor Laurent, talk to me. One of the gospels has to go. Can't wait to hear this answer.
It's blasphemy. If I was to eject one of the gospels, hopefully when I answer, the Lord does not eject me. But if I was to eject one of the gospels, it would probably have to be Luke. I enjoy Matthew's imagery. I enjoy Mark's swiftness. I enjoy the uniqueness of John. Luke is a powerful gospel. If I was to have to get rid of one, it would be Luke. Now, some people would say if you get rid of Luke, you got to get rid of Acts. But we're not going to talk about that. We're just going to get rid of Luke on today.
All right. Thank you. We appreciate that theological answer. Pastor John, if you had to get rid of one of the gospels, which one would it be?
DaMarrus, when I agreed to do this, I didn't realize that you could get me fired. It seems like the only thing that's going to be going is my job. But if I had to choose which gospel to get rid of, I would choose Mark. And the reason being is that it's short, it's concise, and I prefer more, I guess, depth. And I think Matthew, Luke, and especially the book of John have that depth that I gravitate towards too. Not to say that Mark is not, but it's shorter, it's quicker, it's a quicker read. I would say that it's more of like that synopsis as opposed to the whole book. So I would probably have to put Mark on timeout.
I love the way you answer that, on timeout. All right. Pastor Michelle, talk to me. One of the gospels has to go.
Oh, man. Can I go instead of the gospel? I want to answer this question. Matthew has to stay because he has the genealogy of Jesus in a very specific way that shows his messiahship. John has to stay just because he just comes from a completely different angle and he expresses the love of God so much. So that's Mark and Luke. Luke is a doctor, so I love Luke. Like, he's just very intellectual. But I'm gonna have to keep Mark, get rid of Luke, because Mark is the only gospel where he shows his flaws, and I love it. There's a story at the end of Mark. He talks about leaving Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane naked and running away, and I love it because he just shows his humanity, like that he was human, and then God uses him later on. So I guess we're getting rid of Luke.
All right. Hey, it's a safe space. This is a safe space. All right, the last icebreaker is going to be this, and this is going to be a really good one. One church instrument has to go. We have the piano, the bass guitar, the drums, or the organ. One of these church instruments has to leave your church building. Starting with you, Pastor Michelle, talk to me. Which one has to go?
The piano. Hello. The organ is the only one that could do what the piano does. The piano cannot do what the organ does. You have to have a bass. You have to have a drum. That's music. So bye-bye, piano.
Bye-bye, piano. All right, Pastor John, talk to me. One of these instruments has to leave your church, and I know you have all 4 of them at your lovely churches. And which one has to go?
You know, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't think that I want to play this game anymore, DaMarrus. Thank you for the invitation. Okay. Certain instruments are not as, how shall I put it, readily available in a lot of our churches, but that doesn't mean, if this is primarily a personal preference, then that's how I'm going to answer. So keep the piano, keep the organ, keep the drums, and I would probably have to excuse the bass instrument. Again, wonderful instrument, but I think that my personal preference would be to let the bass go. And that's it. Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate everybody's time. God bless you.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Laurent, talk to me. One of these instruments has to go.
The drum keeps us in time. The bass gives us that feeling of weightiness. The organ will make you run and shout and glorify the Lord. But I'd have to say the piano would have to go. And that's hurtful to me because out of all those instruments, I play the piano the best. But I can do without the piano once I have an organ, a bass guitar, and some percussion.
All right. Pastor Kim, talk to me.
This is also a difficult question for me. I'm a musician also. I was a music teacher before I was pastor. And so this conversation is difficult, but I would have to say that if I had to let go of an instrument, it would have to be the piano as well. Similar to Laurent, piano is my instrument. But in terms of the gospel music sound, I think having the organ is of utmost priority over a piano. So for those reasons, I would get rid of the piano with reluctance.
Oh, okay, cool. What's your favorite instrument to play?
Piano. That's my instrument. That's what I've been playing since I was 4. So yeah.
All right. These talented pastors. All right, Dr. Sam, talk to me. One of these instruments has to go.
I don't want to play this game, nor do I want to answer this question. This is completely unfair. Music is very near and dear to my heart. It makes me a little emotional to have to get rid of one of these. Can I opt out? No? Okay.
Unfortunately, no.
Fine, I'll comply with the rules. I would get rid of the organ. Here's why. Because of inclusion. There we go. It's going to make it a great answer. So I think that the piano, and I'm not thinking like upright, I'm not thinking acoustic, I'm considering piano, I'm thinking of a Yamaha, I'm thinking of a keyboard here. And I just think they have so many plug-in sounds that like you can be versatile with it. You can still get an organ sound, although not as rich, not as beautiful. But then you can get lots of different styles of music. The other instruments are like, I would never get rid of a drum or a bass. Those are absolutely necessary. And I do think that the piano and organ are equally as essential. But I just think the piano is more versatile. And for me, like I also was a musician, I will say was, with heavy emphasis. And I play the violin, and without a piano accompaniment, things just don't sound the same. And an organ would not work for me. So.
Okay.
All
right.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate everybody's honesty. Yes, I put you on the spot. Yes, you will have some conversations with your conference president after. No, I'm just joking. You may not have that. But I do want to thank you guys for participating in the Safe Space Icebreaker. And now we're going to dive into an opportunity to just talk to you personally about some of the things that you deal with, some of the pros, the cons about being a single pastor. And I kind of want to go around the circle asking a few questions. And if you feel like you agree with the next pastor's answer, you can chime in. This is going to be a really safe space conversation where we can just give people a glimpse of what goes on in our life. And so the first question I want to start off with, and I'm going to start with you, Pastor Kim. What are some of the common misconceptions about being single in ministry that come your way?
I think the first one that comes to mind is that I have time to do whatever, that I'm not as busy because I'm not married or have children, that I have more time to do stuff. And that's not always the case. In many cases, I'm as busy, or if not more busy than others who have relationships. I think that's one misconception. Another one is this idea that I'm loving it, I suppose. And while I am, it's, not always a bed of roses. I think there's always like this idea that, because you have your own independence and you can do whatever you want, that must be amazing compared to what everybody else is going through. But that's not always the case. It has its pitfalls as well.
Yeah. Thank you. Laurent, talk to me. Some of the common misconceptions that come your way about being a single pastor.
Where should I begin? I'm just going to give one because there's other people that need to share. For me, the primary misconception would be that you're just out here dating a lot of people or dating around and all that comes along with that, when it's really not the case. I was sharing with somebody yesterday, I think, and I was saying, it's 8 p.m. Saturday night, and I'm here, nice house, all by myself, with only the echoes to keep me comfortable. No date in sight. It's COVID, so ain't nothing really happening anyway. So I think that's a major misconception, that you have all these options, you have all these choices, and you're halting between two opinions. Dangerous misconception.
Dangerous misconception. Interesting. Pastor Michelle, talk to me. Some of the misconceptions that come your way that you've heard, that you've experienced, that because you're a single pastor, you should be doing whatever.
A misconception is that I have people lining up at my door. Like, I don't know where this idea came from that everyone wants to date the pastor. Quite frankly, they are actually running in the opposite direction. So no, we don't get tons of dates. At least I don't get tons of dates. And then the ones that I do get are not ones that I'm going to take. So yeah.
Okay. All right.
Big misconception.
All right. Pastor John, talk to me. What are the misconceptions that you get as a single pastor?
Oh boy, which one to pick? I think the biggest thing for me is that biggest misconception of being single is that I am unhappy, and they equate essentially being married. You need to find somebody so that you can be happy and fulfilled, and I think that is a huge misconception, because last time I checked, Jesus was single and he lived quite a fulfilled life. So yeah, that's probably the biggest misconception that I can think of.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I've definitely heard it, and I've actually made a mistake and said it sometimes. Like, you need to get married so you can be happy, and it's just like, that is far from the truth. And so, Dr. Sam, when you hear some of these responses as a therapist, what advice or what kind of advice would you give to these pastors when they hear these misconceptions? Because I can only imagine, like, there's times where you're, Laurent, like you said, you're alone in the house, man. Like that can be a little, like, you can only talk to yourself for so much. What advice would you give to some of our pastors based off of some of the misconceptions that they've said today?
Wow. I'm almost at a loss for words, because I think this is a very deep and heavy conversation, not only because most of these are like gross misconceptions, but just to be clear, like, I don't give advice. However, I I just think none of that is true. I really don't. As someone who is married, has crossed over to the other side, whatever you want to call it, I think that there are things that need to be understood about singleness, especially in ministry. I don't even know where to start. I really don't, because I don't want to take this to a direction where it shouldn't be yet. But I can definitely say that, like, the first thing that's coming to mind, like, marriage does not equal happiness. Absolute fact. Like, and anybody, we can argue about that all day long. Please DM me, let's debate. But it does not equal happiness. And I think that there is this massive misconception that is based on so many different standards and norms and just these ideologies that are false. They're false. I think the biggest thing is for everyone to get to a point, and this is not to say, like, avoid marriage at all costs, but I think everyone needs to get to a point where they relish in that singleness, and see and find the importance in the singleness. I keep wanting to say signalless or signal, whatever, singleness. But just so that you maximize that space, because there's so much work that can be done. Not to say that you can't get married until you're like fully perfect in yourself, because that's also not a thing, but so much work that can be done that could save you a lot of time and energy. I'll say that and leave it at that.
Can I say amen? Amen to that. Thank you.
Definitely.
And I felt like I was in a personal session just there with Dr. O'Bannon. I mean, I was about to send her payment for that counsel over there.
It's not too late. And she wanted to make it clear she does not advise, for clarity. All right. So let me ask this question. Okay. So, and I know everyone's experience is different, Is there a pressure to get married, or people are like, man, don't enjoy yourself? Is there a true pressure where, Laurent, like, you preach all over the place. You preach all over the place. And is that one of the common things that people say to you, man, like, where's your wife? When are you gonna get married? Like, what are you doing? Do you experience that? Have you experienced that?
I have a group of friends who I'm sure are watching this, and my pressure comes from them. I mean, they're all married, and my pressure mainly comes from them in a humorous way, not in a very serious way. When I first started ministry, I started pastoring a small church in Selma, Alabama, and I would get it a little bit there. As time went on and as I got older and then came to Texas, I don't really get it here in terms of a serious conversation. Little jokes here and there. But what's kind of interesting is at my church, we have an admin team, and 4 out of 6 of us on the admin team are single. And so there's a lot of single leaders in my church. So I'm in pretty good company.
Okay. All right. Pastor Kim, how about for you? Is there a pressure? Do you feel that as a female pastor, is it a little different? We're like, girl, you better get married.
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially when it comes to childbearing and wanting to start a family. There's definitely pressure from family and loved ones. I think there's a genuine concern for, having companionship and partnership. So yeah, I get it. Not as overt as of recent, but there have been instances where people have just been straight up like, what's going on, for sure. So definitely there's pressure.
Yeah. When they say what's going on, is it kind of like what's wrong with you, or why you're not dating, or why you're not married, or it's just like what's going on? Is it the job, or did they make it like it's personal? Like, girl, what's wrong with you? Why you ain't married? How do you receive that when they say what's going on?
No, honestly, they are sympathetic. I don't even know if maybe our counselor, our psychologist she can maybe speak to this. I don't even know if this is even really a compliment or not, but it's more like, oh, we get it because you are Pastor Kimberly Bulgin. Like, that's part of the reasons why you're like still single, because you have to really get a guy that's going to understand you and he's going to be there for you. And, you know, it's in that vein. We get it, you know, why you need somebody really special. You need somebody that is really going to understand you and not be intimidated by you. I get a lot of that. They're not going to be intimidated. So, but we know there's somebody there, you know, we're praying for you, but we understand why it probably is taking so long because of who you are. I don't even know how, as I'm talking about it, I'm like, well, I don't even know how to take that.
And I think this is important because, you know, when you look at Pastor Michelle's ministry, Pastor Kim's ministry, as two powerful, you know, female voices in their churches and just across the country, I mean, I think this is true. There is going to take someone very spectacular to be able to handle the level of gravitas that they have, and so I think that's a real concern, that sometimes you meet people who don't necessarily have the capacity to contain who you are, and so while everyone's trying to hook you up with people, you're focused on, does this person have the right capacity to really handle who I am?
I'm sensing some resistance to that statement.
No.
I don't know what I can't articulate what it is, and maybe she can give language. But this idea, I mean, it makes me feel untouchable. It makes me feel unapproachable. It makes me feel like,
yes,
I'm up here, and I understand that I'm here. Or maybe it's the tension of ministry and influence, and also just knowing that outside of that, I'm still Kim at the end of the day, and so I want to be married to somebody who gets Kim primarily. Yes, you understand like the ministry and the blah blah blah, but if all of that disappeared tomorrow, right? Like if I'm no longer this, can you still be with me regardless? Like, so maybe, I don't know if that's the resistance I'm feeling, but maybe she can give me some language, because like I don't really, that doesn't jive with me. I don't know.
I'm so taken aback here. I mean,
I get it. It's true, but I don't like it.
Okay,
because I'll be honest with you, and this is from me. I thought that was a compliment, that Laurent. I thought that was like, yo, because you're here, it's going to take a special. You can't just get a blow Joe down the street who doesn't aspire for the greatness that you already accomplishing or accomplishing. And so I'm with you, Laurent. I thought that was like, I thought she was going to be like, oh, thank you, Laurent. She switched that thing up on us.
I'm gonna like jump in here really quickly if I can interject, because I think that you guys are touching on something that was in my mind as you were talking. I don't think that has anything to do with it. It has nothing to do with ministry. I think it's just people struggling with the ambiguity of not knowing what to say and how to say. I think it's too often, which is so frustrating. Even as I'm listening, I'm like, oh, my blood is boiling. It really, really upsets me that people say stuff like this. But I think it's in an effort, not to be offensive, but just to try to like connect on some sort of level, to perhaps try to provide a solution or provide a rationale for why, right? They're trying to make it fit in their cognitive schema or in their world, right? And I think everything that we do as humans, I'm so sorry, oh my gosh, I'm professional. Everything that we do as humans to this same space, right? Where like we're all trying to figure out like, how does this fit? How does this make sense? How do I react to this person? How do I empathize with this person? And it's just really unfortunate that I find that the vast majority of individuals, whether they're married, whether they're single, whether they're female or male or whatever, like we're all trying to figure out, how does this make sense? And how is my experience being different than yours still equal? You know, like how is yours different than mine? And what are you doing? And I just want to say, I really hate, especially with women, just because, I mean, it was an experience of mine too, even though I'm not a pastor. So you guys have a whole different layer, I'm sure. But it's so frustrating because I feel like too many times people try to equate singleness to like a character flaw, right? Where it's like, oh, if you're still single, then there's something about you that still needs to be worked out. False. Many people who are married still have stuff about them that needs to be worked out. Like, I don't think it has anything to do with that. It's so frustrating, but I can't make it make sense. I don't know if that provides anything, but I will say that a lot of times, because fortunately on this, at least on this conversation, many of you are presenting with kind of a united front that like, you don't view your singleness as a deficit. That's what I'm hearing, right? A lot of individuals, I have a lot of friends who are single, and most of them view it as a deficit because that's what they're hearing, right? Because everybody's like, oh, well, how long are you going to take? Or are you even dating somebody? Or like, when are you getting married? Or when are kids coming? And there's just so many pressures from external worlds to fit this mold, that if we're being completely honest, like those who have crossed over, like we're struggling too. And I'm sure if many people who have been married or who are married are willing to be completely transparent, I would venture to say that anyone, and this is going to be a very bold and strong statement, but anyone who has been married or is married that has dared to say that they were 100% ready and or that they did not have any second thoughts at any point in the process, they're lying, right? But again, in an effort to make it make sense, we're very quick to be like, oh yeah, well, let me try to talk about all of the things that are positive about her in hopes that she'll internalize this as something positive. So yes, Pastor Kim, you just need a strong man, and there aren't that many of them out there. So girl, good luck finding the one, like the diamond in the rough, all right? Like your Princess Jasmine and Aladdin, like good luck. I mean, we'll like, we don't want to do any betting over here, but let's see what happens. It's just, I don't know, it's ridiculous. But I don't want to like keep going and going and going because I will talk forever. I'm a talker. But I will say that one thing that I've realized, and they even talk about it a lot in psychology, is that part of the reason why singleness can be so difficult, not only for other people who aren't and who are trying to like empathize or sympathize or resonate with you in general, connect with you, but also individuals who are single, is because a lot of time it arises, I mentioned this word before, this ambivalence, right? It's an ambivalence, it's ambivalence, things that you're not really sure about, and it's also like an ambiguous loss, especially I think in our churches, right? Because the message that has been shoved down our throats since we were born is like there is a natural progression and trajectory for how our lives are supposed to look. And somehow, if you've made it to college and have dated or haven't dated and still haven't gotten married, and then by a certain age haven't had kids, and then whatever else is supposed to happen, there's this message of like, I missed a step, and or perhaps there's something wrong with me, or I did something wrong. Like there's this underlying tone of failure, which then creates this feeling of loss and ambiguity. Like, what have I done? Where then you're struggling with identity because you're trying to figure out what's wrong with you. And that's not like, there's nothing wrong with you as a person. So, I mean, I'll kind of like leave it at that, fall back for a second, let you guys keep going, and then try to jump back in. But like, ultimately, like it can be really validating sometimes just to acknowledge that, just to acknowledge, like, just because I haven't reached this milestone yet doesn't mean I've done things out of order. It doesn't mean perhaps my priorities are wrong, especially for women. I have a friend who this is the thing that happens all the time. Well, you work too much. As a woman, you're spending too much time focused on your career and not enough time focusing on your relationships and children. Like, okay.
Wow.
I'll stop there because I have so much
we
to say.
appreciate that.
Oh, I have so much to say. DaMarrus, you're over there like, ooh.
Michelle, were you able to remember what I was saying?
Kim,
what? Wait, I can't hear you guys, but I think
what
one second, keep talking.
Were you able to resonate with what I was saying?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was even going to push it a little bit more, because you hit it, right? Oh, Michelle, you're just so powerful. Like, who's going to date you? Like, no normal Joe Blow guy is going to just walk into the picture and he can't handle you. And remember, Kim, I have the extra seasoning of being divorced.
There you have it.
So it's oh, she's married and she got divorced, and why couldn't she keep a man? What's wrong with her? What happened? Oh, well, she's very like happy and go lucky. She probably messed up. You know, I mean, it's just so much. And you're sitting there like, hi, I'm here. Don't talk about me, talk to me, you know? And so when you said it, I was just like, oh, she's so right. Like this idea that because we are strong women, yes, we're strong women. And yes, we are strong in ourselves because Sam rightly said, I know who I am. I am a Latina woman. I am as spicy as they come. Yo te agarro por el cuello, te cuelgo por la ventana if I have to. I don't even care, right? That's me. That's my personality. That's who I am.
Yes.
I have no shame, zero shame. But that doesn't mean that I don't know how to be a wife. And it's an idea that because I'm the leader of my church, that I can't take a second seat in my home. Or that the idea that to be a leader is to be a man, or the idea that because I'm a woman, I don't play my role right. Like, what does that even mean? And I had to remind someone when they were like, well, do you not think that, you know, the man is the head of the church? I said, Jesus is the head of the church. And so it was like a whole argument thing. And, you know, I'm in the South. I'm the only female pastor in my conference. I'm the first commissioned pastor. And even at my commissioning, they were like, okay, so now you're commissioned. So now you can get married and have kids. Cause you know, TikTok is like, I'm like, so Laurent and I got, you know, he got his ordination on the day that I was commissioned. And I looked at him and I was like, do people talk to you like this, Laurent? Like, do people say to you, hey, Pastor Laurent, you know, time is ticking. You need to get married, or now's the next step. Like, it was just, I don't understand why people feel like one, we're not easily loved. Why people feel like our strength is an impediment to your strength. Or that there is a certain checklist that I'm looking at when I see a guy like, oh, no, you don't have enough money, or no, you don't have a good job, or no, you can't sustain my habits, and, you know, I'm high maintenance, and like, no.
It is. I don't want my strength to be considered a liability.
Exactly.
Or a problem.
Exactly.
To find love.
Exactly. And the idea that I have to be maintained by somebody else as if I can't maintain myself, like, what?
I think DaMarrus and myself are just listening and learning right now, you know.
And maybe for men it might be different. Maybe for you guys, maybe that perception or that idea maybe works from a man, you know, from a man's perspective relating to a woman, that you need a special someone. Perhaps, maybe you all could speak to that more. But for a woman, I think I know people mean well when they say it, but it does give a vibe of how I operate, how I do ministry, how I show up in the world. It minimizes opportunities for connection and intimacy with a man.
Wow. Thank you guys for sharing. John, talk to me. Do you feel any pressure to get married?
Well, first of all, man, mind blown. Dr. Sam, I think you've articulated things that I had been thinking of myself, and just want to thank you for that. Initially, yes. Professionally, yes. I remember when I was interviewing for conferences, and I don't know if I'm allowed to share this, but this is a safe space, I guess. They in those interviews, inevitably they always ask you if you're married or you're not. And I'm going to just say, generally speaking, most of the conferences that I interviewed with, they always ask the question, are you married? I am not. And then the follow-up question to that was, why? Like there's something wrong with me. I remember this one conference straight up said, because I went to Southern, shout out to Southern, by the way. They said, so out of all the girls here, there was not one girl that you're interested in? I'm like, in my mind, I was like, I wanted to say something different, but I was polite. And I said, well, in God's time, right? That's your standard answer. So even getting into the profession of pastor as a single person was already difficult. And then transitioning into being an actual pastor, initially, yes, the members would ask, you know, are you married? Are you dating? Do you plan to? But that has kind of petered out over time. But I think the biggest pressure for me to get married, it has to come from my family. I'll just share a quick story. I remember I was talking with my mother, and she's a faithful woman in God, and she's like, John, I know that one day God is going to bring that person into your life, and I know you have to trust him, but I just hope that I'll be strong enough to hold my grandchildren. And I'm like, Mom, that wounded me so much more than anything else I've ever heard in my life. But yeah, the pressure. And then my sister, she's wanting to have kids, and she's like, John, you need to have kids so my kids can have cousins. I'm like, okay, I think there's a process that happens before that, but sure, I'll accommodate your request. So yes, I think that there's a professional and a familial pressure, but I also think, to Dr. Sam, your point earlier, that there's a process, or there's I guess stages in life that you have to go through in order to be normal. So you go to school, get a degree, get a job, then get a family. That's how we roll. But then when you don't do that within the time frame or at a certain age, then you're looked at as a failure. And in some ways, there's personal pressure on me, because it's just like, okay, I'm educated, I have a job, I love it. So what's the next stage? What's the next step? And I guess in a way, personally, there is that pressure. I guess the pressure to conform, and companionship, and wanting to have a family, those all play factors into that as well. So that's where my struggles as well.
Wow. It's interesting, the different perspectives, but it's all still from the foundation of pressure that we all deal with and have dealt with, man. So I appreciate you guys sharing that. My second question, and I'll start with you, Pastor Michelle. Does your singleness affect your ministry? Does your singleness affect your ministry?
Yes, but not in the way that you're thinking. So this is a safe space, so I'm going to talk about it. One of the hardest things that I have to deal with as a single pastor is other male pastors. I didn't know if I was going to talk about this, but I feel like, since this is a safe space, that I should be able to. There's this misconception that because we're both pastors, that I understand, and because I have been married, right? So they come at me from the perspective of, well, you've been married before, you have needs, and, let me help you with those needs. And these are not just other single pastors. These are also male married pastors. That's the hardest thing that my singleness has done to my ministry. It is one of the worst things, because I respect my male colleagues, and I would expect the same respect to come back towards me. And being single in ministry for me is difficult already as it is. As Kim rightly said, first of all, there's not a lot of female pastors as it is. And then Black female pastors, in my case, Latina and Black female pastors, the number just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So the people that you can talk to and have a safe space with, the number diminishes. And I'm sure that if the female pastors made a collective and spoke to each other about these men and put their names out there, we would probably realize that it's the same ones that are coming from one to another, to another, to another. And it's a problem. It's a problem, because we are just as anointed as you are. We are just as close to God as you are, if not more. And you're stepping at us in a way that's just so disrespectful, as if because I'm a woman, I should just allow you to be man. And that's not cool. It's not cool. I thought that my hardest issues being a single minister, when I first went into my church, I was going through a divorce. I was getting ready to take punches from all angles, everybody making all types of crazy, wild stories about what was going on in my personal life. I was out there for display. So I was already afraid as it was. But that's not where I got my issues. My church was super cool. Like, they protected me. They didn't let anybody talk about me. No one came, someone came into my church once and was like, your pastor's going to get fired because she's getting divorced. And my elder stood up in that room and said, do not talk about our pastor like that. Like, my church, they have been so supportive of me. They don't throw their children at me. They don't say, hey, I have a son or a grandson for you to date. I'm not in that kind of church. Even in my church now, I'm in an immigrant / very progressively Caribbean church. So they don't play that. They don't talk to me about my eggs drying up. They don't talk to me about any of that stuff. They take care of me. They really do. If they see somebody who's new and a guy steps to me at church, they're like, who are you? Why are you talking to our pastor? What's going on? And, and I appreciate that. So my issue is not with my members. My issue is not with my work. It's not with my senior pastor. Like, we're all good. My issue is with other male colleagues who step at me, and it's so foul. It is so foul. So that's all I'm gonna say on that.
Wow. No, Pastor, I appreciate you sharing that, man, and being vulnerable enough to say those things, man. And as your friend, it does hurt my heart that you have to go through that. So I'm sorry for that. What about you, Pastor John? Talk to me. Does your singleness affect your ministry, and how?
First of all, Michelle is a personal friend of mine, and I'm really sorry that that's been your experience, and my heart breaks for you. I know you've gone through a lot, but you're right. You're just as anointed as anyone, if not more, and you know that. But at least on my end, when it comes to being single, does that impact my ministry? When it comes to counseling, either marital or premarital, people are like, well, you're single, how can you counsel me? I'm just like, okay, well, we can discuss communication. Do you guys communicate well? Have you talked about finances? The things that actually lead to divorce. But I mean, other than that, and the awkward, how shall I put this? The awkward, oh, I have a daughter, I have a niece. I actually get a lot of these nieces because I have older members. I have a niece that would go so well with you. And here's the thing, I don't know if your experience, other pastors here, when somebody wants to hook you up with somebody, it's always like, they don't give you a name. They don't tell you if they're pretty or not. They're just like, they're godly. She sings, she plays the piano. I'm like, I mean, those are not prerequisites, for somebody to be with me. But there's always those awkward interactions with people trying to hook you up with their family members. But I gotta say, at least I've been fortunate that being single hasn't impacted my ministry in a hugely negative way. In fact, in some ways, it's enhanced it. But that's been my experience so far.
Thank you. Pastor Kim, talk to us. Has your singleness affected your ministry? And if so, how? You're muted.
Kim, you're on mute.
Thank you. I would say that, yes, my singleness has affected my ministry because in a positive, I'll go the positive route in the sense that my time is basically my own, right? And so how I'm able to navigate my own personal work-life balance has been a blessing. I know what my needs are, what works best for me in terms of my schedule and how I'm able to operate effectively in ministry. I have a bit more freedom, I guess, to do that because it's just me by myself. So I view that as a positive in terms of being single and being able to manage my schedule more readily, knowing what my needs are currently. If there's a negative, I would say that there's an awareness. It's hard to explain, but it's tangible. Like there's an awareness that you're single um, in environments where people are married. And so as the pastor, sometimes I have to be mindful of that and how, boundaries and how I relate to people, how I relate to women that are married in my church and their husbands and, just awareness. That's the only word I could think of that I feel like I would not have to be thinking about those things if I was a married woman. I don't, I've had stories, I have stories rather where there's been some run-ins with married women because I'm single and it's just been weird. So I've learned that because of my position and my influence and my singleness, I have to be mindful of how I relate to other married women, which can be overwhelming and stressful at times to be always constantly aware,
Yeah. It's interesting. I remember when I was first married in ministry, I had a bunch of couple friends and we hung out and everything was cool. And when I went through my divorce, things changed for me, Kim. Like I wasn't invited to certain things. I
Right.
mean, if I spoke to a couple's friend, I used to speak to his wife all the time. Now when I speak to her, he's like, yo, or vice versa. And so the awareness is just, it can be tiring. And so I appreciate you sharing that. For you, Pastor Laurent, does your singleness affect your ministry? And if so, how?
I think it's a great question, and definitely thanks, Michelle, for sharing that. Some of those things we talked about privately, and I think it's very transparent that you were able to share that. Has being single affected my ministry? I would ask this question in a couple of ways. Firstly, as a pastor who is unmarried, there is sometimes a level of proving that you have to go through. And I remember I did a family series about a year ago here in Austin. And part of that family series was called Marriage and Divorce. And when it was advertised, a couple of people came up to me and said, "Gosh, you're not married. How you gonna do this divorce thing?" And then afterwards, they said, "Pastor, so blessed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." And I often share that if you go to a doctor for a sickness, that doctor doesn't have to go through that sickness to help you with that sickness. If that doctor has been through that sickness, perhaps there are some elements he or she may be able to share. But my pedagogy, my teaching, is not primarily out of my experience. As a pastor, my pedagogy comes out of the Word of God through revelation, through observation of different things. And so there sometimes has to be a level of proving when you're single. And then as a single man, let's be honest, there's a level of maturity that comes with being a husband, or is supposed to come with being a husband, or comes with being a father, that no matter how great, how wonderful you are as a bachelor, you probably will not attain because you're not married and you're not a father. And so there's a level of having to remove question marks over, remove question marks that some people may have, coupled with the fact that I'm 31 years old, pastoring the fourth largest church in my region. So it can be challenging. However, I think the greatest challenge that I have noted is not necessarily in my ministry, but more personally. Most of you know that I lost my father a couple of weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, and going through that, single and not having, I was sharing with a couple of my pastoral buddies, not having someone to kind of walk with you through that or hold your hand through that, or some of the victories that I've attained over the past few years, not being able to share that moment, having to celebrate yourself, by yourself, for yourself, because of yourself. That can take a toll on you emotionally, but yet you cannot show it, because when I step on the grounds of 3016 East 61st Street, Austin, Texas, Alpha Seventh Adventist Church, I can't be shown to be emotionally have an emotional deficit because I'm single. I gotta be the pastor. No matter whatever my lot thou hast taught me to say, it is well with my soul. And so there are some aspects that singleness does attack. However, I think for me personally, it mostly attacks my own personal equilibrium. I can handle it, I can live with it, I can fight through it, I can maintain, I can do well, I can thrive, et cetera, et cetera. But there are some black holes along the way.
Wow, 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 wow. You know, never really thought of it like that, man. Laurent, I appreciate you sharing your heart on that. And of course, we've been praying with you with the loss of your father, and like you said, not just the loss, but the celebrations, being able to count those wins with one person that you really love, man. And so I appreciate you guys all sharing. Pastor Kim, I feel like you want to share
I wanted
something.
to add on to that because, and I think just I'm agreeing with everything Laurent is saying. I think also, like, yeah, I have girlfriends, and yes, I have siblings, and yes, I have parents that could celebrate with me and can help me through the difficult seasons. But it's just not the same as having a life partner. So yes, while I may have community and family, that it still falls short of having somebody to walk with you that is chosen to walk with you during life's seasons.
Yeah. I think one of the key things you just said, Pastor Kim, that I want to piggyback on, chosen to walk with you, because some often, and Dr. Sam can probably agree with this. There are marriages that have not been chosen, and so you would think that this person would be walking with you and celebrating you, man. But if that person is not chosen for you, you would find that there is this eternal, like, internal wrestling that takes place where you feel this person should be celebrating you, but they're actually not one of your cheerleaders at all, man. And so it's just interesting on both sides of that. Pastor Michelle, you've been through a divorce, and so you have a unique experience with both sides of this thing, and you can also agree to some of what I'm saying. And so I want to, Dr. Sam, look like you had something you wanted to say on that.
There's lots that I want to say. So much. First of all, I just want to thank all of you for sharing and being transparent. And especially to Laurent, our condolences, my condolences, everything. That's definitely not an easy loss to have to endure, especially during these times. I think I'm finding the need in this moment to validate each and every one of your experiences. I think that I've also been guilty of this, where I have many friends who are single and who, are like, oh, well, at least you have, or at least this, or at least that. And the grass is always green on the other side, right? So for me, I'm like, yeah, well, at least you can, at least you. I mean, it's hard for either side to be on a level playing field. And I just want to validate that all of the experiences that you guys are having, whereas on one side, there is this unmet need, right? I mean, if we take it to psychology, one major principle is like the theory of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Basically, which discusses this premise of, like, as humans, what we need to survive, what we need to feel whole. And usually at the bottom of that is like our physiological needs, right? We need basic stuff. We need air, we need water, or else we're not going to survive. And obviously we're probably just going to die, right? And then after that is safety, but immediately after that is like this sense of love and belonging. And it does help. It could help. It does make a difference. And I don't think that any person is wrong for having a desire for that. I think that's in human nature. I think it's even biblical. Like, I'm not going to try to go and speak theology and talk about certain texts and everything else, because that's not my ministry. But, I definitely grew up in the church. I'm definitely, have my own little personal type relationship with God. We're on one accord. But at the same time, like, I completely understand that. And I also understand that feeling that or being in that space doesn't necessarily take you out of this other realm over here where you can still be comfortable to a certain extent, not in a negative connotation, but be okay with your singleness for the time being. But aside from that, one of the major things that I wanted to say, for sake of making this like super spiritual, is I personally believe, this is my personal belief, anybody can disagree if they want to, but I personally believe that marriage is designed to save you. Marriage is not this easy walk in the park, run, jump, skip, and hop with somebody that you love. And because you love that person, oh my gosh, I love him or I love her and I just want to be happy. Like, that's selfish. If you're going into a marriage because you think that person's going to make you happy, I'm sorry, but you are going to be sadly mistaken. And I think this is such a layered and complex subject to unpack. And I really, really like this conversation, like hurts my heart in multiple ways. And one way is because I sort of, it's disappointing to me that as a church, as a community, as a body, we are not honest enough about the challenges of marriage. And we are not honest enough about what marriage requires and entails, which I think does us a disservice. I think many people enter into marriage unprepared. And I don't always think that it's because that person isn't right for you, but I do strongly believe that if you have not taken the time to be comfortable with yourself, and to develop that relationship with God, to rely on Him as opposed to another person, as Michelle kind of mentioned earlier, then things are not going to be as they seem. And you run the risk where if you are not whole as a person, that even if that other person was ordained for you, you could ruin that. And I do also believe that you can help to damage another person. And that's where it gets dicey, because there's so many layers to this and it's so deep. And, you know, DaMarrus and I were actually talking about this the other day, very briefly, because I haven't spoken to him in forever, but hey, I literally talk to this, like I have this conversation with everybody, my single friends, my married friends, everybody, because I'm just in a space where we just hit 6 years on Friday. So praise the Lord for that, because marriage, whew. But, you know, it's challenging, and your spouse becomes your mirror. And that's not always a mirror for positive things. In fact, that is usually a reflection of the things that you really, really need to work on. Because again, I firmly believe that marriage is designed to save you. God's not playing with you when it comes to marriage. There's so many requirements when it comes to marriage. The unconditional love part being one of it. With this, I'm just gonna like take it pop culture for a second with this whole recent, like, I don't even know because I didn't even want to read it, but whatever's going on with Cardi B and John Gray and his wife Aventer and Cardi's divorce, like, it irks me. Like, that's one of the fastest ways to frustrate me, that other people feel the need to speak to other people's marriages and other people's relationships when you have no idea what God has called that person to do. No idea. Because thinking about it in like, man, I want to go so many directions. Just as case in point, one of the easiest things, I saw somebody post about this the other day. One of the posts was about this whole John Gray, Aventer, whatever. And the caption said, in a world of Aventers, be a Cardi B. Can I see everybody's face really quickly so I don't just see myself? That, I had to shut down my computer and walk away. That triggered me. That was very triggering. And the person's excuse or their argument was that I don't understand why somebody would, you know, X, Y, and Z, trying to divulge and get into the details of whatever the drama and the situation, the divorce, or whatever the case was, because, you know, in their particular situation, infidelity is a clear marker for divorce. That's your excuse. That's your out. You should automatically leave if you respect yourself. And I think that goes both ways. And I don't think it's just about infidelity. I think people make those statements about relationships in general, about marriages in general. And I am of the belief where you don't know the conversations that God has had. There are some people that are single because God is like, bro, have a seat. Because if you don't heal this, you're going to go into every relationship, every marriage, and just keep repeating the same cycles over and over, because it's not about that person, it's about you. And I think you guys know in ministry that God will go through great lengths, even if it means affecting other people, to save you and to reel you back in. And sometimes that's collateral damage for your family or whatever else that means. And so I just think looking at this topic from a broad spectrum, like, this is just so important. I'm so glad that this is the topic of conversation. I'm so glad that each of you are so willing to be transparent, that you're willing to sit here and be honest about this, talk about the difficulties, talk about the offensive things that have been said, and also be open and willing to, like, well, you know what, it might be something that I'm interested in, or I am. But I think in this moment, one of the biggest take homes that I have is to spend time in your singleness. And this is for everybody, you know, to really, really, really try to work on you and to develop that relationship, to try to see the gift in singleness. I think you have a unique opportunity in singleness to truly work through your baggage without that baggage affecting somebody else directly. And I've seen way too many times, myself included, you know, I'm not exempt from anything. I'm definitely not perfect. No relationship, none, not one relationship of anybody that I know, old, young, church, not church, like anybody. I think many individuals who go into a marriage have found at some point that they had this aha moment, this revelation where, like, whoops, I thought I buried that. I didn't know that that was still a thing for me. I thought I was over it, and now I'm seeing it play out, and, like, my bad. Because those things certainly come back to haunt you. And so taking time in your singleness to truly, like, work through some stuff, work through those generational curses, like, really look back in your family history and just be like, what is a common theme here? What challenges am I going to have to face? Because the enemy uniquely assigns demonic influence to impact marriages. And I think it's because if you wipe out a marriage, you take out a whole system. You take down a whole family system if you can wipe that out. And so there's just so many layers. But I have so much more to say, but I'm going to pause and wrap it up there, just to kind of leave it on that. Like, spend time to really, truly figure it out and really learn to love yourself, figure out who you are, so that you go into a marriage whole. So you can go into a marriage knowing that, like, this other person is who God wants me to be with. And yeah, there are going to be challenges, but you know what? Like, I'm secure enough in myself. I'm whole enough in myself to where even when they are short, like when they're falling short of what my expectation is, or if I'm falling short of what their expectation is, we can still exert and demonstrate grace and love, and, like, love each other through it and not waver. Our commitment shouldn't waver. And I think especially in our culture, we're in a popcorn generation where, like, if it ain't working, move on. Tons of other options. So next. And that's not always the best situation. I'm just going to stop because I will keep going.
No. We appreciate that. Those are definitely some nuggets I think we all can glean from and learn from. Let me switch it up. Laurent, do you desire to be married? And if so, are you disappointed that you're not married yet?
Yes, no. Yes, no. Do I desire to be married? Yes. But most I desire to be with the right person. I think marriage is honorable. It's a wonderful desire to have. Am I disappointed? No, I'm not disappointed. Did I think I would be? Perhaps. But at the same time, I realized, just like what Dr. Sam was saying, sometimes God has you in a unique season. And sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, God can see that which you do not see. Just like Dr. Sam was sharing with us, there are people that we know of across the country, across the world, who are married but aren't happy, who are connected on paper but disconnected in spirit. And so that there has to be, sometimes we think we know what we want, but I really believe that God knows best. Secondly, I believe that not everyone's going to get married. Not every pastor is going to be married, right? Not every person is going to be married. And thirdly, sometimes we don't really know what we're asking for. And it came through in Dr. Sam's words that marriage is not just a walk in the park, a stroll amongst fragrant, effervescent roses. No, marriage is work. And if you don't want to work, don't get married. If you don't want to have disappointment, don't get married. If you don't want to argue, don't get married.
Do you have an organ?
Yeah, so you can't get rid. That's why we can't get rid of the organ, you know.
I need shout music in this very moment. I'm about to pull it up.
You know, so many people, and one thing I found, I'm sure that Pastor Michelle, Pastor Kim, Pastor John, and you, DaMarrus, and even you, Dr. Sam, there are so many people that are in love with the idea of marriage and will get married for the idea, for the utopianness of marriage, but overlook that there are seasons of dystopia, and overlook that once you get used to the idea of marriage, you've now got to get used to the person you put second to your idea of marriage. And the most difficult thing, you know, talk about disappointment, the most difficult thing for people to do is to walk away from their idea of what things should have been like. Should have been married by 28. Should have had a kid by 31. And to walk away from that is challenging. It can be depleting. And so to combat that, I think you have to align your expectations and understand that your timing might not be what God has in store for you.
Wow.
Wow, I love it. Pastor Michelle, being married, you've experienced it, went through a divorce. Do you still desire to be married again? And since you're not, are you disappointed about that? Talk to me.
If you'd asked me this question probably a few years ago, I would have said, no, I'm never getting married again. Because, Dr. Sam hit that nail on the head. Marriage is hard work. It is a lot of putting yourself aside. And I completely, listen, Sam was my homie before she was Dr. Sam. And I will say this, if anybody disagrees with her that marriage is salvific, then they're in the wrong marriage, because marriage is absolutely salvific. God is working on you, and this person is going to remind you of all the things that you don't do well. So do I want to be married? The short answer to that would have been nah. But I do want to get married again. I think marriage has the possibility of being something beautiful. And I do thank God for this time that I've had to grow in myself, to get to know who I am, not to find my identity in someone else and labels. Like, he has really taken this time to allow me to grow. Am I disappointed? No, I'm not. I'm 32. I have been, I've lived a full life. I've gone through a lot. I've carried kids. I was pregnant. I had miscarriages. I've been through ups and downs. And the beauty of life is I get to do this journey with God, right? And then along this journey, God will find someone who he'll say, hey, this person will complement your journey. He's not going to supplement any part of me, because I am a whole. I'm a whole being. And I'm glad that God said, hey, you need to be out of this situation because you don't seem to understand that your wholeness does not come from someone else. And I'm not perfect. I still have my therapist, who I absolutely love her. She's amazing. And she just keeps reminding me of why I'm on this journey. But the other part of that is, in being single, I have learned to appreciate space, time, growth more, and to really focus on myself without having to feel selfish. Not having kids right now has been a blessing. At the time when I had my miscarriage and I was married, I was so sad and I was crying to my husband. But now I understand why that had to happen. So that line, will understand it better by and by. Like, I live by that. When something happens that I don't understand, I'm like, God, and he'll just remind me, hey, you'll get it. Give yourself some time. So I'm not disappointed. I'm not disappointed that I'm not married, because I feel like if I had gotten married maybe like 6 months ago, or honestly, if I got married a year ago, I think I would have been in a divorce again. And there were things about me that I needed to work on, that I wasn't being honest with myself about, that now I could sit here, DaMarrus, and honestly answer you and say, I am not disappointed that I am not married. And I am happy that God has brought me on this process. So yes, I will get married again when God is ready for me to, when he feels like I got it. I got enough figured out that I'm ready to move on to that next phase of my life.
It's interesting, Pastor Michelle, because I remember after my divorce, I was there too. Like, yo, I ain't doing this again. Nah, I ain't never doing this again.
Yeah.
And I started to have this journey where I isolated myself. I didn't continue with ministry like you did, and I applaud you for that. But I went away, man. I went to a dark place. I moved to Atlanta where no one knew me. And it was a blessing where people were reaching out to me, and I just didn't return calls because I actually, for the first time in my life, Laurent was one of the guys calling me, built a relationship with God by myself. It wasn't based off of preachers praying for me and preacher talking, my parents. I built this relationship with God, and it was crazy as he began to like shape me and mold me. I didn't know that he was shaping me and molding me to be, a better person first, not for marriage, but a better person first. And then I was shocked when I met my wife because I still wasn't like, yo, I was good, man. I'm in Atlanta. It's 18-1. Come on, somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm good where I'm at. And I was being 100, and then God shocked me with this blessing that I was like, man. And I was able to be, and I still am a work in process. My wife would tell you I'm still so crazy. But I was a lot more whole, if I could say that, man. Preparing myself for marriage, where I didn't even know it, man. Like I went, like you said, dealt with generational curses. I started having conversations with my people, like, yo, why you did this? Yo, what was I met my grandfather who got mad kids, and I'm like, yo, and I start to deal and wrestle and have conversations with my dad, like, yo, like, why am I thinking? Why am I dealing with this? And it was all God shaping me and molding me to be the best person I could be. And out of that, not saying that because of that, I'm now married, but out of that, I am now in a better shape to be married from where I'm at. And so I appreciate that. You want to say something, Michelle?
I want to just add to what you just said real quick. You said, why did you say it in ministry? Ministry saved my life. If I had stopped pastoring, I would have lost my purpose because I felt like I could only minister to people because I was married. I felt like my marriage badge gave me the ability to stand in a couples counseling and tell the couple, you guys can do this because I'm doing it. And so when God, allowed that to dissolve itself, it was like, he was like, no, you're not in ministry because of anybody else but me. You don't occupy the roles and the spaces that you occupy because of your gifts or because of your talents. You occupy those spaces because I have given these things. I have entrusted you with these gifts so that you can then take it and bless somebody else. This isn't about you. And when I got divorced, that's when that reality hit me real hard, because now I'm sitting in marriage counseling sessions with people. I'm actually about to marry a couple in 2 weekends from now. And they were telling me in my last session that I had with them, they're like, we're so grateful for your honesty and your openness. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, guys, marriage is not a cakewalk. And, this one fight that you have, that's going to continue to come up if we don't hurry up and solve that problem, And it's so amazing to see how much more of and I hate to say it this way, but of a better person I became after, because I started taking care of myself. I started going to the gym every day. I started to eat well. I started to cook for myself. I started to, just really care about my image, care about the way that I looked. And it just shifted. Like I stopped living for other people. And for the first time in my life, I lived for myself. And if I hadn't been in ministry, I'm not sure if I would have had that type of experience. I'm not sure if I would have healed the way that I healed, to understand God's love the way that I do now. I applaud Kim for having her sexual, her Love God, Love Sex series, because, and I've heard people talk about her, and I'm going to say this because she's here, people who are like, well, what is Kim? Kim's never been married. She's never, how could she talk about loving God and loving sex? And I said, listen, sexuality goes way beyond what you think it does, because I was married and I was very unfulfilled. And the reality is sex has nothing to do with your partner. It has everything to do with you. And so I Kim, we're here in a public space. I'm just gonna tell you, I'm proud of you. You're doing it for Jesus. And I'm telling you, DaMarrus, like, there's a reality that not just divorce, but singleness gives you this ability to really get intimate with you. Get intimate with your thoughts, get intimate with your feelings, understand why you respond the way that you do to things. And I don't think I would have had that had I not had an opportunity to be single as an older person, where I was forced to be introspective.
Wow, that's deep. All right, I know we're preachers and we like to talk a little bit. John, right quick, do you desire to be married?
Wow, right quick. I mean, after that, what's left there to be said? Do I want to be married? Yes, I do. Am I disappointed that I right now fighting my disappointment? I'm also living through the tension of also, asking God, okay, I'm single, there's a reason, there's a purpose, there's a season. What are some things that I can look at in my own life, and what are some things that you want to do through me that you wouldn't be able to do if I was married? So I'm processing these things where I have to be comfortable being single, to be content, not just with my job, but with my purpose. Am I going towards the direction that God wants me to go? Am I fulfilling what he put me on this earth to do? That's the journey that I'm on right now. And, fighting the disappointment, because it seems that we have placed such an unhealthy viewpoint of marriage, where marriage is the end all see all. Like, that is where you need to be in order to get to the cusp of Eden, right before Jesus comes, which I think we've thoroughly debunked at this point. So those expectations are both personal as well as cultural, both in my Filipino culture as well as in the culture of the church, where you have these expectations heaped on you. By this age, you need to be married. I have goals in my own life. Did I expect to be married before I turned 35? Yes, I did expect to be married before I hit my 30s, and that hasn't happened. So I'm the kind of person is when I don't hit a goal, I'm disappointed in myself when there's something wrong with me. So that's what I'm saying, is that I'm fighting my disappointments, and I'm trying to clarify why I'm disappointed. I'm trying to ascertain where it is that God needs me to go, where God wants me to grow, and go from there. So that's where I'm at. If I could put it succinctly, yes, I want to be married, and I'm currently fighting my personal disappointments in my own life. So that's as succinct I can put it.
Wow. No, I appreciate you being transparent about that and vulnerable about that. Pastor Kim, what about you? Do you desire to be married? And since you're not, are you disappointed?
Yeah, everything that's been shared thus far has been awesome. Great conversation, great dialogue, great transparency for sure. Yes, absolutely, without question, unapologetically, I do want to be married. And I no longer apologize for that desire.
Amen.
Years ago, I used to kind of like, Jesus is my boyfriend. That's not true at all. So I'm definitely a lot more confident being able to say that is definitely a desire. And even when I go into dating spaces, I'm able to speak that openly and, not be ashamed about it. There's been a lot that's been said these last few minutes. And I suppose when it comes to the whole disappointment thing, I think I'm learning to just live in a space where I'm allowed to be both disappointed and satisfied. So yeah, there's some legit disappointment. There's legit mourning and grieving over what could be or what I thought would be for sure. As well as there's happiness and satisfaction also. But I don't think it's not one or the other. It's definitely both and. So yes, I am disappointed that I'm 37 years old and I'm not married yet. That's just my truth. But at the same time, I'm also working to be satisfied in this season as well. And the other thing, because a lot has been said about marriage is hard work. I think part of my disappointment is that, yeah, marriage is hard, but being single is hard too. There's a reason why I started this Love God, Love Sex experience. It was born out of the frustration of being single and having sexual desires and urges, and needing a space to talk about it and vent about it and be frustrated about it without being shamed about being frustrated about it. So absolutely, I'm disappointed, and there are days where I'm annoyed that I have to go to bed by myself yet again, while other people are just booed up with others. And then, so this idea that, marriage is hard work. Well, yes, I agree. But I don't think it's not fair to say that while marriage is hard, that single life is all about improving myself. And, yes, I'm all about improving self, but it goes back to both. And it's an opportunity for me to improve on myself and also acknowledge the frustrations and the struggles of living a single life. It's frustrating having to pay all my bills by myself. And having to figure out my money situation by myself. I am looking forward to partnering with somebody and sharing the bills, and sharing partnership. And on the flip side, though, I'm sure in marriage, it's hard to manage finances with two people also. So I don't like when we're pitting one season against the other in terms of hardness and difficulty. I think both seasons has its disappointments, has its highs and its lows, and it's all about, I think, just managing the seasons that we're in.
Can I add this? That's a powerful point. I think that just based upon my experience and talking with certain people here and there, a lot of, on one hand, you have singles who might be disappointed that they're not married. And then you have married folks who are disappointed that they either married too soon, married the wrong person, or perhaps there was an evolution that took place individually in the two people or the one person. And now that evolution has pulled you apart from the spouse. So I think there's an element of disappointment that takes place on both sides. And you have people who are unhappily unmarried and people who are unhappily married. And I really think that in our quest, in the pursuit for happiness, we have to ensure that we're taking the right step at the right time with the right people. And so many people are living lacking, lamenting, and limited because they're taking steps but with the wrong people.
Wow. Yeah. Deep. I'm about to just go there. So Kim, what's your dating process like? What's your dating process? Are you on Adventist People Meet? Are you on Bumble? Are you on the apps? Or are you just like, you like to get hookups? You're like, yo, my man got a man, they got a man. That, what's your dating process look like? And we're gonna hit the circle and we're gonna make it real quick for everybody. What's your dating process look like, Pastor Kim?
My dating process has evolved over time. I'm currently in a dating process that I would term rotational dating, where I happily have guys on rotation. And a lot of church folk are probably clutching their invisible pearls that pastor is out here like dating multiple dudes, but I am, and it's been amazing to be able to meet different people, meet different guys, and get to know them. And let me tell you why. It's taken a lot of the pressure off for me to make things work that are not going to work. And it creates an opportunity for me to really evaluate and assess these men. And it also puts me in the spot of doing the choosing, as opposed to, well, he's the only one that's dating me, I guess I have to choose him. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got options out here. So let's see what's happening. And if he decides to want to offer an exclusive relationship, then I have the option, literally, to say, yes, I will accept your offer, or no, because of XYZ. So that's been really empowering for me, coming also out of a purity culture movement that said, you can only date one person. And if you're not, then you're like dirty and tarnished, and just being able to explore different people and get to know them and do it in a way that is less emotionally taxing. That's another thing that's been helpful in dating multiple people, is that it's forced me to dial it down a bit when it comes to being emotionally invested, because we're not exclusive, we're not together. It minimizes situationships and entanglements, because I know that there's this guy and there's this guy and this guy, so I'm not trying to stop. There's this guy and this guy and that guy, so I'm not trying to get too deep in something that's not necessarily supposed to be deep. So that's a bit of my dating process. I'm loving it, and I'm hopefully one of these guys will be the one. We'll see.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. I like that. Got a couple guys on rotation. I like that. Pastor John, talk to me. What's your dating process like for you?
I currently don't have a dating process, but my preference would be to date someone that is within somebody that's a friend of a friend. My preference is to have somebody that has some knows within my circle. I haven't gone the realm of online dating. I'm not opposed to it. I guess I'm just more the kind of person that just wants to meet people in person. But again, I'm not opposed to it. We'll see where that goes. But I'm intrigued by that rotation. I've never heard of that before. Pastor Kim, I think you and I need to chat about that later. I'm curious. I'm curious about that. But no, I guess just get to know people, like hang out. I'm a big foodie. I love to eat. So if you don't like to eat, we're done. But no, I mean, I'm really laid back, casual, like to get to know people, like to have fun and just, develop, friendships, common interests, and see where that goes. So I guess that's my process. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it. So if they don't like to eat, that just ain't gonna work for you.
Well, they need to eat to live, but I'm saying, like, I think they need to be a little bit more to explore a little bit. Of course, everyone has their preferences. It's not a killjoy, but I do like to explore. I do like to travel. I like to do different things. So having someone that's a little bit open in that area would be helpful for them and for me. So yeah.
Gotcha. Pastor Michelle, talk to me. What's your preference in your process for dating for you?
Preference and process. I actually don't have a process, and I don't have a preference. I'm really not picky. But I am a very informed dater. So if I'm going to date you, I'm going to ask you the following questions. And they're just 4. They're very simple. The first one is, are you married? The second one is, does anyone think that you are married to them? The third one is, are you in a relationship? And then the fourth one is, does anyone think they are in a relationship with you? So once those questions are clarified and clear,
good to go. I like it. 4 simple, quick, and easy questions.
4 simple, quick, and easy. Hey, friend, let me just ask you these real quick questions. And then if the answers are no to all 4, then maybe we can exchange Instagram accounts and then go from there.
Perfect.
I don't give my number.
I'm loving the screener.
I've never really considered that before, Michelle. And those are very good questions to ask, especially now that we're moving into our 30s, where people at this time are, I'm sorry to say, divorcees or single mothers or single fathers. We have those too. So those, I mean, like, I guess for me, I just assume, like, if you're in the dating, then those things would be kind of hammered out. But I think those are very good questions to ask. And thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that.
You'd be surprised at the answers. Especially the last one. Does anyone claim you to be something to them? That one is a very vital
I never thought of that before, so thank you.
Very vital question. You would be surprised at how people respond to that. But I am currently in a relationship right now, and I'm very happy. And God is good, man. Yes. So I am in a relationship, really, really happy. But I'm the kind of person that has learned her lesson from blasting stuff out there. So until there are signed documents, nobody will know what it's just not. Yeah. Learned that lesson the hard way. So
I'm with you on that. Laurent, talk to me. What's your process and your preference?
Process and preference. I'll do this in under 60 seconds. As it relates to preference, somebody who is intelligent, loves God, is career driven, career focused, has her own success in her own arena. That's so important to me. Someone who takes her health seriously, someone who values family, someone who speaks in, someone who's able to challenge me intellectually and to make me think. I'm a thinker. So that's my preference as it relates to that. As it relates to process, I have some friends, some pastor friends who will, recommend certain people here and there. And as you say, I've traveled a lot of places, and people always ask, have you not met anyone, along the way? And I meet great people all the time, but it's not just about great people, it's about finding the right person. Dr. Sam has been talking about all her single friends throughout the day. So maybe me and Dr. Sam need to have a conversation. Maybe she has some great recommendations. So we're going to have a conversation after this stream. But yeah, my process is simply, I like generic, I like organic, not generic, organic. I like organic relationships, organic connections. I don't do too well with artificial connections. And I think that out of friendship and out of attraction can be birthed something very special. And maybe one day, the Alpha Day Adventist Church will have a first lady. Because my predecessor, who was here for 13 years, happily married, great family, and now they are first ladyless. But the reality is, a lot of pastors look for someone good for their ministry. I'm out here looking for someone good for me.
Yeah, and I really like what you said there, Laurent. You want it to be organic. You want it to develop naturally. You don't want it to come from a place where I think this person is going to be good for my ministry. And is that a consideration? Absolutely. We'd be liars if we didn't consider that. But again, organic. It has to come from, hey, common interests. Like, do I like hanging out with you? Do you like hanging out with me? I mean, let's start there. And yeah, thank you so much for articulating that. And the organic part of it, it has to happen naturally. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
So
can I say one more
hey,
thing?
Nephew.
Hi, Samantha.
Hi, nephew.
I have to hold on for a second. Just to, I guess, maybe as a I don't know what the word is, with this whole like rotation, what it's not is I see Dr. Sam
to clarify.
I was thinking, I was like, let me put some disclaimers out here so that people don't.
We're just assuming the positive. It's all right. We know you're in ministry.
What it's not is like friends with benefits. What it's not is friends with benefits. It's really just friends, like getting to know people with minimal commitment, minimal pressure. You're keeping it super fun. You're keeping it super flirty. Nothing major. And you're definitely collecting info. You're collecting data. You're collecting and assessing. But it's not messing around with dudes all over in different area codes.
No. We thank you. We thank you for the clarification. And like Dr. Sam,
Kim, I'm sorry, but your nephew right now, his expression, like that could be a meme right now. Like, really?
Yeah. And so we're going to close out with one question I want you guys to answer, and we really appreciate once again.
Can I make a statement before we close out? I'm so sorry.
I wasn't closing out just yet. That's just how preachers say, like.
Okay, go ahead.
It's almost like, I'm almost done, but we ain't almost done. No, but go ahead.
I missed the ministry cue.
No.
Go ahead.
It's all good. Sam, actually, go ahead. Chime in.
I was just going to say, first of all, with Pastor Michelle, I love the screener questions. Moral of the story, never assume, always ask. You have to be very specific many times with individuals and ask all the questions, because if you don't ask one of the questions directly, you may not get the correct answer. Just saying. With Pastor Kim, I agree. I vote yes to the options. It's important to do your research. As you know, someone who has done my doctorate, I'm a scientist by nature. I think it's important to research and get great data. But what I wanted to say is basically, I just want everyone to hear, and I think we've already said this. I know Pastor Kim talked about it, but I just want everybody to hear that it's important to not only be okay with where you are, to find a sense of identity and like resonate and let that resonate with you, but also to understand that, you know, saying singleness is hard doesn't take away from difficulties in marriage or vice versa. You know, I think both are difficult in different ways. They both can be hard, both can be rewarding in different ways. So not the sake for rebuttal, definitely, but just for education, just because I have a lot of friends that like to bring this point up. In terms of the whole sex thing, you know, the unfortunate part is that sex is a major reason why a lot of marriages fail. I think in the research, the most current data that I've seen, which I think was a couple years ago now, was at least 20% of marriages are in like a sexless marriage. And so it's important to just go in with this knowledge, because I do have quite a few people who usually come to me and they're like, oh, but like at least you can have sex. I'm like, yes, I can, without feeling guilty about it or whatever. It doesn't mean there is no guilt for a lot of people, but that also doesn't guarantee that it's going to happen, just saying. But I only say that to say, or only say that to share from a lens of like the data and the research. And also because I'm one of those people, like I really desire to be like super transparent in responses to address questions that I know that I've personally had, or I've personally gotten comments that have been made to me by some of my friends who have committed to dating while being abstinent. And so I guess the takeaway, my little like take home, back to that same word, identity, right? We've heard a lot through the conversations. I'm a big listener and supporter, I guess, of like Mike Todd and his ministries. He's got this like relationship goals that just came out. But one of the things that he said, which was pretty profound, was something to the effect of like, our identities should be defined by what God has made us to be, so that we can learn to be truly complete and comfortable in that identity, rather than trying to enter into a different identity or to use a relationship to complete that identity. Because if we don't stand for something in particular, then we'll tend to fall for anything, right? So I think a lot of what everybody has been saying is excellent, you know, to be able to have these parameters and boundaries, to be able to have different options, just to see like if I really like this or not, you know, and not feel the obligation, as Pastor Kim said, to like, oh, well, I guess this is my options. I got to figure it out, you know? So I just wish everybody the best. This has really been a great conversation. I'll wait for the actual pastoral wrap up, but it's been such a pleasure for sure.
Amazing conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Really, really appreciate it. And so my last question as we wrap up would be, if you could give some advice, one piece of advice, we'll do that, to one of your mentees, single mentees in ministry. Pastor Michelle, what would you tell that pastor, that single pastor?
Take your time. There's no rush. There is no timeline. Take your time. And I know you said one piece, but I have to give the second piece. Do not respond to people who are commenting on your sermons in live chats. If they put their phone number on the internet, do not respond to that person. And go ahead, John. Pass the ball to you.
Is that a thing?
Somebody did that. You can watch my sermon. I'll send it to you. And you can see in the chat. Do. He literally prayed and said, Lord, please send me Pastor Michelle's number. I'm not even kidding. So,
wow.
Yeah. I mean, you got the juice, so why not?
Come boldly before the throne.
Shoot his shot. This is it, you know, like he presented and made his petition, like he presented and made it known, you know?
The worst part is he was the cousin of the person that was hosting. So he was like, I'm so sorry for my cousin, Michelle. And I just died. Yeah.
Well, there's an option.
There are a lot of people out there that you just need to like avoid. And that's probably an avoidance person. Avoid people who just, who don't understand time and place. Avoid those people.
I'm with you. Pastor John, talk to me. What word of advice would you give to the young single pastor coming into ministry?
All right, first of all, this is what I'm talking about, the awkward things that happen to us single pastors. That's one example as well. Sorry, Michelle. All right, 60 seconds, right? That was 10 seconds. All right, first thing, find your purpose. Know why, where you're going, why God put you here. Second, create healthy boundaries in all your relationship. Find your purpose, healthy boundaries.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. I love that.
Good one.
Laurent, talk to me.
Yeah, similar to what John said, your raison d'etre, your reason for existence. What are you here for? What is your why? Right. Once you know that, then you can kind of move in a way that is befitting of your raison d'etre. Secondly, know what you want. Know what you're looking for, but also be open to things coming in all different shapes and sizes and everything. You got to be open, right? That's probably, I saw Michelle's face. That's probably one of my problems, to be honest. You have an idea of what something should look like, and sometimes it's not that. So you got to be open, be yourself. And for any young pastors watching this, fellow young pastor who's single, do not look for someone who you think is just going to be good for your ministry and that's it. Because after 1 o'clock, after church is finished and you go home, you need someone you can laugh with, someone you're attracted to, someone who makes you laugh inside, someone who you like to hang out with, someone who you can joke with. And if you don't have that, you're setting yourself up for a dangerous journey. And it's horrible to have to be in a house with somebody, be in a silo with somebody for the next however many years of your life and being unhappy. That's not a life at all.
All right. And last but not least, Pastor Kim, what advice would you give to a young single pastor coming into ministry?
Going to Bible studies are not dates. That's not a date.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody that says go to
Isn't
Bible
that romantic?
study.
Spiritual.
No, absolutely not. I would say to my mentees, like, live your best life. Do things that truly make you happy. Lean into things that really turn you on. And when I talk about that a lot in my Love God Love Sex group, and when I'm saying that, like, things that awaken your senses, all of your senses, live life in high definition. And in those experiences, be open to meet new people and don't minimize opportunities that may lie in front of you, that may be your husband. Don't assume that it's going to be something else. 1 second, hon. Don't assume that it's going to be something else. And then last thing I would say is just really celebrate who you are, like the good, even the stuff that you have to be working on. Celebrate who you are, love who you are, and the right person will come that will love you too.
Wow. Listen, guys, I really appreciate this conversation, man. I think this is something we can even have a part 2 on because there's so much that we didn't cover, man. But I first and foremost want to thank each and every one of you who decided to allow us to step into your world for a moment and to see exactly and to hear exactly what you go through on a daily basis as just a senior pastor. I thank God for each and every one of you. Dr. Sam, I appreciate you coming in and dropping those jewels on us from your point of view. I'm pretty sure we have all benefited from just the knowledge and the wisdom and the personal testimony of each and every one of you for sharing on this safe space. My goal, and I believe that God put safe space on my heart so that we can allow people to testify, because when it's all said and done, that God is still on the throne, that God is still good, that God still will keep us, even when we're upset, even when we're feeling in a dark place. God will never leave us nor forsake us. And so my goal is to give hope and to give transparency, but also to give breakthrough to many people who are dealing with the same things that we're going through. Because the reality, I'm just talking to pastors, but there's all types of professionals, there's all types of working people, there's all types of people who are dealing with these same issues. And I just praise God that you guys were transparent enough to sit on the safe space stage and come to the safe space stage and to be transparent about some of the things that you're dealing with. And so I'm going to close out with a word of prayer, unless Dr. Sam, you want to give us one quick shout out
Yeah, I keep getting let out.
out.
I'm getting left out. I'm not a
Sorry,
pastor, but
sorry.
I would like to speak to the single people too.
Yes, please.
Sheesh, just kidding. I'll make this brief. Seriously, time me, because I have a problem. God's working on me. Okay, here we go. Time. My takeaway, what I would say is practice the habits now that you would want to carry into your marriages. I see a lot of people, I have a lot of friends that are doing a bunch of foolishness, to say the least. And then in their minds, they're like, oh, but don't worry, because when I get married, then that's not how it works. If you're not creating a habit now, then most likely you're going to struggle later. So whatever that looks like for you, whatever you strive to be inside of a marriage, try your best to work on that now so that you're taking those habits into. That's it. See?
No, oh man, that was awesome. No, so true, so true. Practice those habits now. And so if you don't mind, let's bow our heads for a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you and praise you once again for being an awesome God. God, today you allowed your people, your servants, to be transparent about some of the pros and cons of being single in ministry. God, today we desire that you will continue to shape and mold us into the people that you would have us to be. God, today I thank you for this opportunity for each and every person to share their testimony and just to share their lives with the world. And God, we pray that as they share their testimony and share their lives with the world, that you will get all the praise, the honor, and the glory. God, we thank you and love you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
We hope you enjoyed tonight's Safe Space. If you're interested in a more intimate conversation, please join us for Off the Record this upcoming Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central. Please see the slide for details. And remember, all are welcome.